Okay. So I think the big thing is, what are the trends going around right now with vaccine rates?
It depends certainly on the population and the different locations around the country and around the state.
Mm-hmm.
But there seem to be more parents right now than maybe 5, 6, even 7 years ago who are choosing either not to vaccinate or choosing to only vaccinate against certain illnesses or with certain childhood vaccines, or even just not completely vaccinate at all, much more than before. I think the autism and MMR debate was really kind of what started the controversy or the concern by parents. It seems like before that we really didn't have much of a resistance to the vaccines in pediatrics.
Right, MMR is the measles, mumps,
the measles,
rubella.
mumps, and rubella, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there certain populations that the vaccine rates are lower than others?
I would have to say actually the populations that I've seen where the vaccination rates are much lower are actually the well-educated parents. So a lot of parents who either have at least college degrees or if not master's degrees in different scientific topics or even in the business world, who tend to spend some time researching information and trying to get their own information before before they come and vaccinate. But I think that's partly because they will go and seek out more information sometimes on their own to make sure that they feel comfortable with things. Plus the whole idea with medicine kind of starting out years ago as a paternalistic kind of setting where the doctor was, I know all the answers, here you go, here's what you need to do, and now it's become more of a consumer type of setting where people want to know everything about what's going on and want to research the medication that they take or the things that they do for themselves first.
I want to make sure we didn't get that backwards. The more educated people are the ones with the lower vaccine rates?
That would be correct.
All right, that's
It does seem somewhat backwards, but I think part of the problem with all of that is that with the measles, mumps, and rubella and autism scare, that it was from a well-known medical journal that information came out.
The Lancet.
From the Lancet, correct. And because of that, having scientific backing in the beginning, I think because of that association, people have tried to look back into scientific articles or information to get more information for themselves, and as a result, we kind of always get back to referencing this Lancet article until recently when it was actually pulled and they formally came forward and said this is not accurate. But whenever you would go onto like a Google search and look for something that was medically supported, that would be the article or the information that you would find.
Did the retraction make any difference?
I don't feel like it has, actually. And I partly blame the media on that, honestly, with some of the, not so much local media.
Hey, let us have it. Let us have it.
What I mean about that is that there are certainly some celebrities who have taken some of this information and run with it, and oftentimes it seems that the general public will really kind of latch onto that because it's a celebrity, someone that they identify with, or someone that they feel has gone through that experience in their own life with their own children or something like that. The one that I always think about is Jenny McCarthy, because she's kind of been a very big advocate of the MMR and autism debate because she has a child who's autistic. And she has very much promoted that she feels like the vaccine was a big part of her child's diagnosis. So,
how serious a problem is this of not having enough kids vaccinated?
It's very serious. We as a country used to have polio completely eradicated. Now we're seeing polio come back. We see illnesses that, we were seeing a good decrease in incidence in very rare incidences like pertussis, which is whooping cough. And now we're seeing every year that we're getting bubbles coming back again. Same thing with measles. We see measles creeping back every couple of years. There was a big outbreak out in the Midwest 2 years ago, I think it was. And so we're seeing these pockets of illnesses that we haven't seen in years. And a lot of us, depending on when you graduated from your training, a lot of us haven't actually seen them ever in real life until now because they weren't coming through because of all the vaccination rates.
I thought I followed this issue pretty closely, but polio is back. We are seeing cases of that.
Yep. I don't remember what states, but I know I've heard about at least 1 or 2 in the last few years, which doesn't sound like a lot because it's a small number, but in comparison to not having had any for years. And I think the biggest trouble with that is people, our generation who are now parents, haven't ever seen what some of those illnesses can do in real life. You hear stories about, your grandparents' generation or something like this that had grappled with it, but we haven't seen a person that we know and can identify with and can watch suffer through an illness go through that because it's been so long since it's been around, that I think it goes under the radar and people don't think that it could actually happen again because there's no real world identifier with it. Vaccines but on an alternate schedule, and then ending up not fully vaccinating because now they don't like it because it hurts or it bothers them and they don't want to put them through that. And
I never thought when I was a kid I could just opt out of getting a needle.
I don't think most of us did. Yeah, and I certainly don't think our parents thought about it. I mean, it was more, this is what you do to stay healthy, and everybody does it, and that's just part of the deal. And you might not like it, but it's better than being in the ICU or in the hospital with some IVs and tubes and all sorts of things. It's a much better alternative. But
now, I read this article, someone was comparing about the number of children that die from swimming or baseball each year and how people aren't as afraid of that. Do you ever see anything like that where parents are taking these other risks, like driving their kids with a motorcycle to the clinic but not getting vaccines? Or
I certainly don't see that as much here. I used to work in the emergency room in a couple different places, both in Chicago and in Boston as well. And I would certainly see that a little bit more there. But I think, again, it's more of, those activities are just everyday activities that we all do, and so there's not that inherent risk that people associate with it because it's just something that, everybody goes swimming or everybody rides their bike or we rode our bike as kids and didn't wear helmets and we're all fine, or we didn't wear seatbelts when we were little, we didn't ride in the car seats when we were little, but we're all fine. And so it's just that because it's an everyday occurrence, I don't think it registers the same.
And they've been filtered because the dead kids aren't.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, with the vaccines is a lot of times, we have a decent number of kids each year that die from whooping cough, and they're usually infants under 2 months of age who aren't able to be vaccinated or who are on an alternative schedule and haven't been vaccinated, etc. But it's the younger infants that have a much harder time with it. And you don't hear a lot of press about those cases, so people don't even necessarily know that, we've had an outbreak, or we've had a group of kids who have passed away. But interestingly enough, there are more and more parent groups of those children who have been lost that are trying to make these uprisings about educating people about vaccinating, and that there's really a real danger not to. I think it's just tough to filter all the information because when you go out to the World Wide Web and you type in vaccines, you're going to get a whole host of information from a variety of sites, some of which are great and reputable, and others which are blogs from people who may not have any particular knowledge about the subject at all.
Okay.
So.
And are we seeing pneumococcus spiking? Or
I don't know.
In the last 6 years or so?
Well, the original vaccine came out maybe 12 or 13 years ago, and we know biologically that about 10 years after a vaccine development you're going to start seeing resistant strains or new strains showing up. And so the development of the newer vaccine that started 3 years ago kind of was ongoing in the few years before that, so it would be ready by the time we were seeing those strains pop up. But we certainly saw a spike during those last 3 or 4 years of the old vaccine of these newer strains, and those are the ones that end up being fatal or certainly debilitating.
Yeah, and one more thing about everything, including the vaccine schedules, it's fair to call that a solid scientific consensus.
Yes, absolutely. Right. So the American Academy of Pediatrics, American Academy of Family Physicians, the CDC, you have these major organizations that their job is to protect different populations or to protect the general health of the country, who have all kind of looked at the data and come to these consensuses and supported these guidelines and recommendations. And so that's kind of what we follow as this is what the majority of the information's out there for, and all the experts in the country are on board with it. So we feel that that's a good enough support for us.